the money creation that all these central banks and these governments have been doing, all of these experiments, is not enough. And the other part of it is, in order for the SDR to become the world reserve currency, people have, or governments, central banks have to hold enough of them in reserve. Now, the excuses that they used were that in the long term, reserve assets could be constrained. In other words, they don't have enough reserve assets. So, it took me a minute or two of reading that over and over again, and I went, oh crap. So they're definitely positioning to take over as the world reserve currency. But it's also inside of a crisis, so it's a double whammy. And will they do an even bigger one? Yes, they will. But what's also going to be very telling is when other governments, aside from the US, actually uses the substitution fund. Because remember, what do we always hear about the US not losing its status as the world reserve currency? Because they have the deepest, most liquid pool of assets and blah, blah, blah. They're held all over the world. So you have to get the SDR up into a similar place. So they're trading SDRs, there's SDR bonds, this big, huge tranche. Yes, it's 2009 was a test. That's when they were really seeing, dusting off the system that they put to sleep after, 1971, or after the petrodollar came into place. So 2009 was the big test of the whole system. This, I think, is probably a precursor to doing more, so that there are enough SDRs out in that global system to take over as the world reserve currency. The SDRs at this juncture act more like ice cubes in a glass of water, right? So they're given SDRs, your glass is half full, you're given a bunch of SDRs, and it looks like your reserves have gotten a lot bigger, even though they really haven't in some ways. But this is also kind of partly like universal basic whatever, because this was a general allocation. Now, 43% of that allocation is going to emerging markets like in Africa, et cetera. So that's the justification. We're really doing it for them. But more than 50% is going to advanced economies. Now, the advanced economies can then turn around and lend the SDRs to anybody else. So part of it is trading, which is probably what the advanced economies will do, just to generate some income, because why not? I mean, we're a big gambling casino anyway. And then the emerging markets that are struggling are likely to spend the other reserves that they have, so leaving the biggest chunk of SDRs in there. Well, a rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency. And if you thought that the currency was failing, you would probably make different choices than buy stocks or buy bonds or buy into any of those other fiat markets that they are creating. And so it is a way, it's perception management. It's a way for you to say, oh no, even as they're buying lots of gold. And you got to keep in mind, so why does gold and silver dump when there's quiet? Because, did they really do a big announcement on the SDRs? No. They don't even want people even aware of the SDRs. But they definitely do not want you aware of gold. That's the paper market. Push a button. It's cheap and easy to create a whole bunch of gold and silver that does not nor ever will exist. And SLV can't put a stupid silver basket together, and you've got silver trading at $23 an ounce. Give me a break. No, I think silver and gold are behaving exactly as they have historically when a government wants to suppress what they're doing
Okay, I see what you mean.
and fleece the population. And the piece that, and so I agree with what you said before, and I think I even said that in my video. This is a gift, and you take advantage of the gift because you never let a good crisis go to waste. And do I think that there is a huge black swan event coming up? Yeah, I do. I do. Just like what happened in 2020 was a nice big black swan event and awfully convenient timing. Awfully convenient timing. We've got the repo markets that are in deep doo-doo right now. Are they the debt ceiling? I even almost hate to bring up the debt ceiling. The real reason why that even matters is because the Treasury is being forced to put additional liquidity into the markets. They have to get it down to a certain level. But of course, they're going to either raise it or they'll suspend it again. I mean, just suspend it. What the hey? They're not talking about liquidating anything. And they have to actually even step it up because globally, other countries are buying less and less of our bonds and our dollar denominated, and they're issuing a lot less dollar denominated debt. So there's a lot of loss of confidence that's happening on a global basis to us as the world reserve currency. But can they do it? No, they can't do it. They cannot run off their balance sheet. Maybe they can buy a little teeny less because what they promised it would be glacial. They promised it would be glacial. So if they're doing 120 billion, what do? 119 billion? With all of the money printing that they've been doing since 2008, there's already hyperinflation that's built into the system. But I want to go back to that period of time that you were talking about, because when you look at where interest rates were, okay, here was the theory when they allowed the central banks to control inflation. And how do they do it? Via interest rates, right? So you raise interest rates, that stalls, fewer people borrow and spend. You lower interest rates, more people will borrow and spend. I think, honestly, to kick this whole thing off, they needed ramp room. Because they wouldn't have had very much room where interest rates were before Paul Volcker came in and juiced them. I think the Fed funds rate was like 21.5 intraday to a high. So, and then moving from there forward, every time we would hit a crisis, they would drop those interest rates a substantial amount, 5.5 to 5.75%. And that did inspire that borrowing and spending. Can they raise the rates? No, they can't. You already indicated all of the debt that's rolling over. I think globally it's something like 13 trillion, and that was in January of short-term debt. No, they cannot raise the interest rates, but honestly, I don't even think that would work anymore.